Shadow and Bone is an American fantasy Netflix series by Eric Heiserer based on the Grisha trilogy and the Six of Crows duology, both written by Leigh Bardugo. The costumes are by Calgary-based costume designer Wendy Partridge. I recently did a comparison of The Witcher versus Shadow and Bone in my Who Did It Better costume series. This video is a deeper dive into the Shadow and Bone costumes, and I'll attempt to not have too much repetition. If you want to check out that video, I'll leave a link in the description below. Warning, there are spoilers for Season 1 of Shadow and Bone, and while I'll do my best, I will likely get some of the Ravkan names wrong because many of them are derived from Russian names. However, if you are truly offended, feel free to leave a comment below. Wendy Partridge, the Shadow and Bone costume designer, is a film industry veteran. You will likely know her work in the Underworld franchise, Thor, The Dark World, Hellboy, and Pompeii, starring Kit Harington. She wasn't familiar with Bardugo's book series when she was hired for the job, but quickly familiarized herself by reading the source material. She used the books as her launching pad, taking many of the descriptions to bring the costumes to life. She said, "The main body of the show has an 1870s Russian-Prussian influence, but we didn't want to make it a period show. The warring factions in this show are Asian, Nordic, Celtic, and Black America kind of feeling. It means the clothing can be really interesting and all of the other accoutrements can be diverse." Now, while author Leigh Bardugo didn't consult on the costumes directly, there wasn't enough time for it. She did say in an interview with Winter is Coming that there was one design that she was adamantly against, although she wouldn't say which one. She said, "And I need to be clear, I think Wendy Partridge is extraordinary, but this particular costume, there was no way for her to know. But I was just like, no, it cannot be. It's the kind of thing that probably no one would have noticed or picked up upon. But I literally said to Eric, I will go stand in the street outside Netflix stopping traffic before I let this happen." She laughs. A monumental undertaking by Wendy Partridge and her team was building about 2,000 costumes and getting them completed on time. Now, while I can't get into all of the characters in the show, here are the basic groups. The First Army, also known as the King's Army, is the principal land warfare force of Ravka, along with the Second Army. Partridge said of creating the First Army costumes, it was a very large undertaking and that there was a lot to manufacture. We also wanted to make the Army feel like it had been around a long time, with uniforms being passed down from generation to generation. And so rather than just ordering up 500 Army uniforms from some factory, I went about the task of finding every kind of drab color, shade, texture, and weight of material. Sometimes it would just be enough material to make one pair of pants or one jacket. The two key characters of the First Army are orphan soldiers Malyan Aretsev and Alina Starkov, the show's main protagonist. Mal wears a linen Russian peasant shirt with brass button fasteners, olive drab trousers with suspenders, and lace-up leather boots. Being a tracker, Mal's costume is built for warmth. His 2-layer leather jacket with shoulder wings, looking like a World War II issued flight jacket, has a built-in wool underlayer, and the leather portion is lined in cream sheep wool. The jacket is also trimmed in gray caracal curly wool. As a Redditor has pointed out, there's a subtle king's emblem of the 2-headed eagle crest on Mal's jacket, as well as on his buttons. This is a similar emblem used by the Imperial Russian Army. Mal also wears an Army-issued greatcoat, also in olive drab. As a cartographer, Alina's costume is slightly different. Her under costume consists of a blouse tucked into high-waisted pants worn with suspenders. Her hip-length coat has front flap pockets, and it's trimmed in the same caracal curly wool. She wears it with a belt buckle featuring the king's emblem, and the blue accent on the belt is also picked up on the collar and cuffs. She often wears the jacket with a matching blue scarf with gold trim. The blue and gold color appear to come from the Ravkan royal sigil of a gold double eagle on a blue field. The same Redditor pointed out that the patch on Alina's jacket features the First Army cartographer symbol. The First Army, including Mal, wear a Ushanka, a Russian fur cap with ear-covering flaps that can be tied up to the crown of the cap. This style of hat is still worn today and very popular in northern climates. The hats are made from caracal wool and have a metal cockade of the emblem on the front. Partridge said, "All of the insignia or ranking, all of that was created for the film, and the buttons were made and the buckles were made for the king's emblem." Now, according to Elite Daily, Partridge designed an all-white version of Alina's first army uniform during a scene in episode 1 to help the VFX team create the illusion that Alina's entire body glows with light when she uses her powers to save Mal. The Second Army is the principal land warfare force of Ravka, along with the First Army, and is made up entirely of Grisha. Like a uniform, every soldier of the Second Army wears a kafta in the color of their order: crimson, blue, and purple, with contrasting bullion embroidery. With its center front opening and separate cut skirt, the kaftas are a rather basic garment, much like that of a late 19th century frock coat. The coat is bound around the collar, front side slits, and hem with contemporary bias, and it closes at the front with non-functional embroidered buttons. All of the coats are lined in fur trim, and everyone wears the kafta with a belt and buckle featuring the king's emblem. There appears to be 2 lengths of the coat depending on the occasion. For more formal events like the Winter Fete, a long-deer kafta is worn over a silk blouse and full-length skirt on the women, and collared shirts and high-waisted button-fly pants on the men. For training and active duty, the Grisha wear a shorter jacket with a Russian peasant shirt with the skewed collar and pants tucked into tall black leather boots. The women appear to wear either skirts or pants. When it's cold, they wear circle capes, slightly shorter in the front with small fur collars. The capes are made from the same colored cloth as their kaftas, with embroidery that matches their jackets. The Second Army often wear the traditional Russian caracal-style hat, named for the breed of sheep with curly wool, with a metal cockade of the king's emblem on the front. Dressed in choka woolen coats, these Russian Cossack World War I uniforms look to have influenced the kafta design. The kafta, as seen in Shadow and Bone, appears to also have taken some inspiration from the Indian sherwani coat, a formal garment worn by nobles dating back to the Delhi Sultanate, a Muslim kingdom, and the Mughal Empire, which ruled most of India and Pakistan in the 16th and 17th centuries. Like the kafta, the sherwani was often embellished with embroidery details on the front and back of the coat. And by the late 18th century, the coat was adopted as the traditional dress of the common man, and today is still used in India and Pakistan as wedding attire and for formal occasions. Here's also an example of an Eastern-influenced British uniform from 1913. The officers of the irregular cavalry wore loose-fitting Indian dress rather than the European uniforms of the regular cavalry. According to Partridge, the wardrobe team made 250 individual kaftas in all. She said by far the biggest challenge was the kaftas because there were so many of them. In the books, the kaftas are made from an exceptionally strong and flexible fabric called core cloth that can withstand bullets. Partridge said, "I came up with this really delicious thorny print that we printed on all of the fabrics before they were embroidered, and that was the Grisha-made bulletproofing for our story. All of the thorn printing was done in India. When watching the show, I thought I detected a texture on the fabric, but it wasn't completely obvious to me what it was for." Partridge said of the hand-stitched bullion embroidery on all of the kaftas, because it kind of takes place in the 1870s, looking up embroideries at the time to see what that was like, everything was very curly, very soft, everything came around and in circles. It just felt like it was very happy. I didn't want that to be the style for the kaftas because these were military uniforms. They were depicting specific talents. This wasn't a frivolous ornamentation. She said the embroidery took on an almost graffiti-esque quality, very gnarly and pointy and modern, and that was very intentional. I don't know that we've ever seen a show with quite so much embroidery in it. Now, while it might not be obvious when you're watching the show, I was certainly confused by it not having read the books. Each suborder of Grisha has its own unique embroidery color. Let's try and break it down. General Kirigan, a commander of the Second Army and a shadow summoner, wears a kafta with black-on-black bullion embroidery. Under his kafta, the Darkling wears a black leather jacket and black trousers. Only the Darkling is permitted to wear the color black, although at the Winter Fete, Alina wears a black kafta heavily covered in gold embroidery. Partridge said that the knife-inspired embroidery on Kerrigan's kafta represents his ability to perform the cut, and that Alina's sunblast embroidery is reflective of her sun-summoning powers. The Redditor posted that the metal fasteners on the Darkling's underjacket, as well as his ring, show the Shadow Summoner symbol of an eclipse. In a wonderful juxtaposition to the Darkling's costume is Alina's finale costume. Her sun gold kafta is made of gold silk and it's heavily embroidered with black bouillon embroidery. It's essentially her black kafta in reverse. To accommodate her horns, the neckline is open. The Corporalki order wears the crimson kafta. The heart renderers have black embroidery, as we see on Fedyor and Ivan, gray embroidery for the healers, and dark blue for the tailors. The Etherealki order wear blue kaftas. The Tidemakers have pale blue embroidery. The Inferni have red and yellow embroidery, as seen by Marie, and fraternal twins Pavel and Polina. In the books, the embroidery was red, but Partridge said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the combination of blue and red from the books wouldn't translate well to the screen. The Squallers have silver embroidery, as seen worn by Nadia and Zoya. The only one to wear gold contrasting embroidery is Alina Starkov, the Sun Summoner. And finally, the Materialki order dress in purple kaftas. Fabricator David wears the gray embroidery of the Duras, while Alchemy has red embroidery. And the servants of the Grand Palace dress in white or off-white kaftas with gold embroidery, most notably Genya, the Queen's tailor. And I'll add that within the Second Army are the Oprochniki, the elite soldiers culled from the First Army who make up the Darkling's personal guard. In the book, Alina Starkov describes their uniform as charcoal-colored. The Winter Fete is held at the Grand Palace toward the end of the winter season. While the non-military noble costumes for the court are 1870s roughly, the Ravkan royal family themselves appear to be inspired, likely in both the book and show, by the Tsar of Russia, Emperor Alexander II, his wife Empress Maria, and their son, the future Alexander III. In the show, King Pyotr and his son Vasily are in solid cream coats and trousers tucked into boots. Both of their jackets are trimmed in gold braid with gold French epaulets like we see in the photos of Alexander II, and are fully decorated with sashes with accents of blue and gold, along with medals. The king wears a livery of gold or chain of order around his neck. And as mentioned earlier, the Ravkan sigil is blue and gold, which ties into their color palette. Now, Queen Tatiana's gold and blue brocade gown coordinate with her husband and son, and with the hanging sleeves, the silhouette of her gown is similar to this exquisite black cream and gold Russian court robe from 1900. The royal family and noblemen in the scene wear white gloves, which would have been customary in the late 19th century for formal wear. The noblemen are dressed in white tie and tails, while the noble ladies are dressed in bustle-style gowns with opera-length gowns, popular in the 1870s. The crows are my favorite costumes and storyline, so it's hard to know if it's because I like the characters so much, especially Jesper, one of the members of the Crow Club. This storyline is its own thing because it's based upon the Six of Crows duology, and while it's in the same universe, the events of the book happen after the events of the Grisha trilogy. It's still in the realm of the 1870s, but a grittier, steampunk style. Apparently, Ketterdam is based upon Amsterdam of the 17th and 18th centuries, but as it's depicted in the show, I feel like it's sort of late Victorian England. Perhaps this is because Partridge was born there. The other two crows are Inej and the leader of the gang, Kaz Brecker. The team occasionally has to don a series of disguises while they're on their mission. Inej, being Suli, doesn't quite fit into the style of Ketterdam, as her costume is a sort of South Asian-inspired assassin style, with her asymmetrical coat with loads of buckles, and some contemporary elements like her high-waisted leather pants. Her underblouse shows some of the Asian influences with the delicate embroidery on the sleeves. Her vest accommodates her numerous daggers, and according to Elite Daily, Inej's 14 knives were sized down to fit into the costume. Now, Jesper is full-on Victorian in a wool-fitted sack suit with a windowpane motif, worn with a greatcoat and short wool topper. He also wears a necktie, at times a cravat, with a standard or wing collar and waistcoat. And he always wears his jacket collar up. It's his signature style. He also had some added flair with a signet ring and pocket poof in his jacket. He is the ultimate in style. Kaz's costume, meanwhile, is equally impressive. He's wearing a suit consisting of a frock coat, brocade waistcoat, and trousers. The frock coat is bound with leather detail on the collar, and at times he wears a wool greatcoat. As the Redditor pointed out, his leather gloves are embroidered on the top with a crow feather pattern. His cane has the head of a crow with a diamond eye, and his hat is a felt Homburg. Elite Daily reported that when Shadow and Bone wrapped, actor Freddie Carter, who plays Kaz, took home his gloves and cane. But they will have to ask him to bring them back since the show has been renewed for a second season. Costume designer Wendy Partridge is set to return. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Shadow and Bone costume or set of costumes were. And if you find value in my videos, consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you in the next video.